Hi everyone, welcome to the Jessa Spice Kitchen. Today we are making an updated video of my beef curry recipe. And so I'm just heating some olive oil in the pot here. The recipe has all the ingredients and all the amounts, and you can follow that recipe as a guide on jessatspice.com. And so let's get started. So right now we're just heating this oil. You can use a combination of olive oil and coconut oil in this recipe. I didn't have coconut oil at the moment, so I'm using olive oil, but it's a very flexible recipe that you can interchange to your level of spiciness and tweak the ingredients as you see fit. So here I have all my ingredients laid out so I can prepare this easily. I have a London broil beef cut here. I prefer London broil because it's tender, it's easy to find, and it has less fat in it, so it's healthier. And then I have a mixture of my onions, ginger, garlic here, and tomatoes, and all the spice blends. So let's get started. I'm going to actually start by adding the mustard seeds to the hot oil. I have my heat at medium-high, so the oil is a little smoky. If I need to, I can always cover up the pot so that I don't get splattered. You want to hear that crackling, which we know that our oil is ready. And I'm going to put the lid on so we don't get splattered. So the heat's on medium right now. I'm going to add a cinnamon stick for extra flavor. I'm going to start adding my onions, ginger, garlic, curry leaves, green chili, so that I can saute this before I add any of my spices. I could raise the heat as needed so that I can brown these onions so they get a nice caramel color on them. And this cinnamon stick is going to just permeate that flavor into the dish. However, once the dish is complete, you can discard the cinnamon stick because its purpose has been met with the needs of this recipe. So I've added all these ingredients and now I'm sauteing. There's one or two options here with the garlic. If your heat's too high, you can always add the garlic later and just saute for a couple of minutes so that you don't burn the garlic. Otherwise, just add it in with the rest of the ingredients. If your heat is on a steady, consistent temperature, then go ahead and add that garlic. It's not going to burn at that point. But let's now go ahead and add the spices that I have here. A mixture of cumin, coriander, garam masala, chili powder, turmeric powder, and the rest of the amounts and specifics are all in the website at jessatspice.com. I have made this spice blend to my liking as a milder version of a beef curry. Many of you may have a spicier palate. Add more or less as you see fit for your family or for the people you're serving this to. So as you can see, I've added all those spices and it's blooming. The smell and the aroma is out of this world. I love the smell of this. I'm going to add an extra level of flavor by adding some curry paste. This is a store-bought curry paste that's cumin, coriander based, has a little tomato base to it too. It'll bring vibrancy of color to our dish. And as we mix that in, the heat can also bloom the spices that are in there. And that's important. When we adjust the heat, make sure you don't burn the spices. Make sure you adjust the temperature accordingly. That's very important to make a flavorful beef curry. And all those little bits that you see down there, we will pick up all those bits of flavor. It's not burnt, so we'll pick that all up when we start adding the tomatoes. So we're adding the base to our curry so that we can just add the meat, the water, and cook it slow and at a consistent temperature. So now we're going to add the chopped tomatoes. These are garden fresh tomatoes from my garden, so they're actually going to have more of a flavor profile here. And the tomatoes will release more water and develop that base for that curry. So you might want to adjust the water content when we get to that step. So I've added the tomatoes and they're going to get mushy. And as I said, those bits of flavor are coming up because the acidity of the tomato is actually pulling up those flavor bits that were at the bottom. And that's what you want to see. You want to see this come to this curry type consistency in the beginning because we haven't even added the meat yet. And we're developing those flavors to absorb to the meat and make sure it's fully incorporated properly. All right, as I said before, this is a London broil cut. I'm going to slowly add some of this meat. As you can see, the marbling on this meat is very minimal, so it's less fat, very tender. The cut of this meat is called London broil. A lot of butcher shops have it, or your local grocery store will already pre-pack the London broil in their meat cases. I'm going to stir all of this together so it's thoroughly combined with that curry base that we just made. And make sure it's absorbing onto each of the pieces of the meat. It's cubed. We cut it to that size so it cooks evenly. Okay, so a couple of final steps. We're going to add some salt. Season it well because this is 2 to 3 pounds of London broil with all the spices that we added. We need to balance those flavors, so the salt helps not only bring out those spicy notes, but also it gives it balance to the dish. And then, as you can see, this beef with all the tomatoes and this mixture will release some water. So as we're cooking through, you just can't leave it and go. You can leave it for a little bit, see how much water there is, lift the lid, stir, and then add a little bit more water to your liking or to your preferred consistency. But I would not leave this and walk away. I would continue stirring, mixing, adding a little water. I have about 2 cups of water here, but I'm not going to add it all at once. I'm going to actually add it so that it just meets the level of the beef in the pot. And then later I can always add more water as it cooks down and have it thicken to my liking. So here, let's just mix this thoroughly, sink that little cinnamon stick in there so it gets that flavor added to it. And then it's already come to a boil, so I'm going to put a lid on it, wait for maybe 35 to 40 minutes on a medium-high heat, check it a couple of times, and then we'll see how it's going. So here's our check-in point. Within that 30 to 45 minutes that I said, I check it a couple of times. So this is my first check-in. It's doing great. More water has been released from the meat. As you can see, the cinnamon stick has opened. That's one of the ways you know that you've now bloomed that spice into this mixture. And that's very important because you want that flavor in there. Each spice contributes to the wholeness of this dish. So I'm going to leave it. I can adjust the heat at this point to medium so that we don't evaporate all the water at once. And let it cook through for the remainder of the 30 to 40 minutes. So on our second check-in, I'm gonna stir this a little bit more. As you can see, the beef curry has thickened up a bit and the water is being absorbed into the curry. But we can let it go for maybe 5 more minutes, let it thicken up a little more. If the water consistency is too much and you want to reduce it, I would put the lid on my pot slightly ajar. You still have some steam and some water escaping. It'll continue to cook at that medium high, depending on your stove temperature. If the curry is thick enough for you, just mix it up, turn the heat off. You can remove the pot from the heat source and just keep it covered off to the side, off the heat, and it will thicken and continue to residual cook and thicken that curry beautifully. So I'm gonna let it go for maybe a little bit more time, like 5 more minutes, and then we're ready to plate it to show you our final results. Okay, so now I'm gonna turn this heat off. I'm gonna take my pot off that heat source, and I left it slightly ajar. I cooked it for 5 more minutes, and as you can see, it's nice and thick. And look at that. That curry will continue to reduce and thicken as you let it sit and cool down. I would let it cool down completely before you store any leftovers of this curry in the refrigerator. It can store for up to 4 or 5 days, I guess, depending on how often you eat it. I'm going to take out this cinnamon stick and discard it. And then I would just put the lid on it or slightly ajar, however you want to cool it down, and go from there. But let's plate it up. What do you think?
I think it looks great. Can't wait to try it.
You want to have a taste? Let's plate it up next, and then we'll have a taste. So here we have it. We have our Kerala beef curry with the tender London broil that we used and all that spice blend. It just looks great. Want to have a taste test?
Sure. Try it out.
Okay. Here.
Do you have to use London broil each time, or can you do something else?
I prefer London broil. I mean, it's really tender, like I said. It's less fatty, and it cooks evenly when you cook it in the Dutch oven like I did.
I remember you made it once with my filet mignon steaks. That actually turned out pretty good too.
Actually, I used your filet mignon steaks for beef fry, and that recipe is actually on JustAddSpice.com too. I know it's an expensive cut of meat that I used, but it was so worth it, so tender.
Yeah, that worked.
But this recipe can be found on JustAddSpice.com, so please go subscribe, like, share, follow my videos if you're interested in recipes such as this one. This was a super hit with my family, and I continue to make it here and there. And it can be served with rice, chapati, fried rice, you name it. So next time, I hope to see you back, and have a great day.